hello everybody, and welcome to this webinar on delivering behaviour standards with Entelechy Academy. I am Amy Hackett-Jones, Chief Operating Officer of Entelechy and your host today. So in this 45 to 60-minute webinar, we'll introduce the thinking behind character-based development and how it aligns with apprenticeship standards and the Ofsted Education Inspection Framework. We'll also take you on a journey through exactly how the Entelechy system works and the impact it can make in the workplace. So just a little bit of housekeeping before we begin. At the bottom of your screens, you will see a Q&A button. We're going to put questions at the end, so you'll have a chance to ask all the questions you like at the end of the show, at the end of the webinar. And there is also a chat button at the bottom. So if you have any tech issues or general commentary, please use the chat function. Thank you very much. Okay. So the new educational framework from Ofsted focuses on the delivery model offered by training providers. There has also been an emphasis placed on behaviours, attitudes, and personal development. So an outstanding delivery model for behaviours and attitudes is now an essential for an overall judgment, as I'm sure you all know, and we acknowledge how difficult it is to marry the technical requirements of an apprenticeship with the demands for work readiness in your learners. So we will show you today how we've met them with the Entelechy solution as a system, as a solution. So here we are, here's the team. So we're going to start off with David, our founder and CEO. He has had a diverse career as a serial entrepreneur and has spent over 20 years as the world's leading CEO mentor. And then we have Steve, our MD of apprenticeships. He has over 25 years leadership, sales and marketing experience in the education and skills sector, having worked for some of the UK's leading awarding bodies and apprenticeship providers. And then Rachel, our head of learning, has over 20 years experience in education as a senior teacher and as a chief examiner for Pearson's. So David will take us through what character is and why it is so important with the 6-minute conundrum story. Steve will highlight the link between character and apprenticeships and how it will benefit and improve your workflow, productivity and results. And Rachel will then take you through an exploratory journey of exactly how we do this, engaging line managers, tutors and learners, getting buy-in at all levels. And then we'll head into Q&A and wrap up within the hour. So David, over to you.
Thank you, Amy. Before we jump into this, I thought it might be useful to remind everyone of some context. So 45 years ago, Britain was #1 in the world's league tables of productivity. And since then, we've slid to number 34. And that slide in our productivity costs the economy billions and billions, tens of billions of pounds every year. And a significant cause of that demise in our productivity has been ascribed by employers to a demise in the soft skills capability of their workforce, often classically referred to as the 4 C's, the ability to collaborate, communicate, think critically, and to be creative. And about 3 years ago, fascinated by all of the research from the CBI, PwC, McKinsey, and The Economist and other lots of organizations, OECD, the World Economic Forum, into the soft skills crisis, we decided to embark on a significant piece of research, talking to employers, employment federations, UCAS, all of the big management consultancy firms, big recruiters. And we asked them to spell out in granular detail what the soft skills were that were missing from the workforce, that either applicants or existing employees didn't have. And that piece of research was fascinating. The original list that we came up with after 15 months of research contained over 800 soft skills. But frustratingly or amusingly or both, 300 of those skills that were listed included things like Excel spreadsheet modeling and PowerPoint presentation making, which of course aren't soft skills at all, they're technical skills. And I think my favorite was the head of HR of a large, famous British FTSE 100 company telling me that the biggest soft skill that they lacked in their business was Python programming. So what was very clear was that there wasn't really an understanding of what soft skills were, and that there was no clear and industry-wide accepted taxonomy of what the soft skills, human skills were, that could be articulated clearly by everybody and everyone would know what they meant. So we set about doing that, and we distilled down all of those character qualities into 77 essential soft skills that are required by employers from their applicants and existing workforce. And those 77 soft skills map 100+% all of the standards required in apprenticeships. However, what has been missing for many, many years is a component of how to teach soft skills, and that is to teach the character qualities, these 54 character qualities that underpin the development of all skills, whether they're hard skills, soft skills, or technical skills. And when 10+ years ago, the 20% off the job training component was created with the full support of employers as represented by the CBI, it was because employers acknowledged that employees needed to have some time set aside to learn these important human skills. However, what has been delivered has failed to shift the dial at all in terms of that productivity conundrum. And so we've investigated why what has been delivered hasn't worked. And it essentially hasn't worked for two reasons. One is because it's followed the standard educational model of assessing what has been taught, not what's been learned. And that is a short phrase, but it's a very powerful phrase. And secondly, the pedagogy that you need to develop human skills is different to the pedagogy that you need to develop technical skills. And at the end of the day, you can send someone off on a course in communications or time management or whatever, but unless you're assessing the application of what was learned in the workplace, like most other courses, a few months later, it won't be remembered. And so if you ask any employer which of these 54 character qualities they would like their workforce to be more of, the vast majority say we'd like all of our employees to be better at all of these things. And equally, when we ask young people which of these character qualities do you think being better at or more of would help you in your life and your career, they say, well, all of them, and why weren't we taught this at school? So actually, the innovation of Entelechy Academy is that for the first time, character is being taught as a subject in its own right. And our disruption is that our methodology, which Rachel and Steve will talk you through later, assesses what is learned and applied in the workplace, not what is understood and can be regurgitated as knowledge in an exam. And so if we can move on to the next slide, please. So each of the 77 soft skills that I talked about just now is in one of 11 aspirations or themes of 7 soft skills. So here we show the example of a manager of systems. The soft skills underpinning that cluster would be attentive to detail, managing crisis, delegating, managing people, researching strategy development, managing time. But you can see on the left-hand side where we've set out the minimum of 6 character qualities that, if they were developed, would enable the articulation and implementation of that soft skill. So teaching people the theory of managing people or delegating is great, but without actually then teaching them to be fair, gracious, independent, collaborative, organized, and assertive, they're never going to be the person they need to be a manager of systems. So I'm going to tell you a story in a second. If we can move on to the next slide, please. So actually, we've skipped a slide. No, never mind. I'll tell you a story. In December last year, I met up with the chief executive of a $3.2 billion turnover global change management consulting practice, and they organize themselves and bill out to their customers in 6-minute time increments. So managing time is mission critical for them. And every single employee, whether they've just joined the firm or they're joining the firm as a director level person, has to go on their in-house $2,280 per person week-long time management training course. At the end of that week, they're given a 10-question multiple choice questionnaire to check if they've understood what they learned, and they all pass that exam with a very good score. But they discovered that over a 3-year period, the application of what they learned on that course and the residual learning in practice in the company, after 1 month, 6 months, and 12 months, was 0, 0, and 0. And that's because they had not been taught how to be accountable, disciplined, efficient, organized, reliable, and responsible. And for example, if they'd had a 360, where every 6 months in the company, on the what gets measured gets done basis, they checked in if their employees were being accountable, disciplined, efficient, organized, reliable, and responsive, and could demonstrate to their colleagues, they probably wouldn't need to go on a time management course. So they were measuring nothing that would actually enable them to determine if their workforce was implementing the time management learning that they'd gained on the course. So all of these 54 character qualities that we showed you just now are all set out in the behavior standards, and we're going to show you 2 quick examples. So if we could pop onto the next slide, please, Amy. So level 3 team leader, we've highlighted in pink character qualities: resilience, accountability, authenticity, open-minded, creative, adaptable, enterprising, fair. These are all components of what is required to deliver a level 3 team leader. And Entelechy Academy offers the only solution that provides a way for apprentices to learn to be and become good at those character qualities. And the next example is one of my favorites. This is a space engineering technician for budding Jeff Bezos's and Richard Branson's, where they will need to learn to become resilient and disciplined and responsible, motivated, committed, reflective, adaptive, responsible. And again, all of these are character qualities which our apprentices can learn to become and demonstrate and incorporate into their daily lives through the Entelechy Academy program. So that's the context. The context is that what has been delivered in the last 10 years doesn't work and doesn't deliver the practical application of that learning in the workplace. And I'm going to now hand over to Steve, who's going to take us through to the next stage of this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, David, and good afternoon, everyone. As Amy highlighted earlier, I've worked in the education and skills sector for, well, 25 years now, so I understand that apprenticeship training providers particularly are exposed to a number of external stakeholders, including Ofsted. So it's no wonder that, according to Paul Joyce, one of Her Majesty's inspectors, that almost 10% of training providers on the register went out of business in the last academic year, which is really astounding. So we really do understand the importance of Ofsted, and several of us have actually been through Ofsted inspections ourselves. So we know how important the development of behaviours and character qualities is to Ofsted learners and employers' needs. Next slide. So let's discuss why it's even vital to develop behaviours and character qualities in apprenticeships, and how it can support you to achieve a better Ofsted judgment, and actually how the Entelechy system can facilitate this. To put this into context, we know that apprenticeships have changed and they will need to continue to change. So we know that quality is about consistently evolving, challenging existing processes and procedures, as well as measuring feedback and data. We also know that characters and behaviours are the most highly sought after skills from employers, and absolutely key to personal development and progression opportunities. We know that because we've spoken to many, many different employers, and I myself have worked with hundreds of levy-paying employers over the years. So how do we support learners, providers, and employers to achieve? Well, we believe that starts with putting the learner at the heart of everything we do. That's what Ofsted wants, and that's what we want. So how can we help you achieve that as well? Next slide. Now, talking about Ofsted, we know there have been changes to the inspection framework, with behaviours, attitudes, and personal development being separated out from 25% to 50% of the judgment. So we believe that there has never been a better time to address these key areas in a way that benefits you, the training provider, the learner, and the employer, whilst meeting Ofsted's requirements. Alongside this, the quality of education has had its focus change with the introduction of the 3 I's: intent, implementation, and impact. And with these changes, we can see there's been a shift away from teaching of qualifications to preparing the learners to succeed and achieve in their very own personal goals. So in essence, this is less about judgment on results and more about judgment on impact. And as Amanda Spielman, Her Majesty's Chief Inspector, states, the key to getting a good grade is putting the learners at the centre of everything. So let's start with intent. This is about assessing the learner's existing skills and behaviours, and recognising what skills, behaviours, and more importantly, the character qualities they need to actually get them there. Utilising the Entelechy systems means you can actually better assess, plan, and develop a learning journey that not only covers the standards, but meets the employers' and the learners' needs. Whereas implementation focuses on building independent learners with social skills that build the characters needed for future and work success. And with the Entelechy system, this allows you to track those learners independently, allowing apprentices to take more control of their personal development, and in turn, allowing providers and coaches to use tutor resources way more effectively. And finally, impact. This is really about evidencing how an apprentice's behaviour has had impact as individuals and how this has impacted their employer. It's also about what they can demonstrate over and above the standard requirements. So ultimately, this is about evidencing if they have developed the skills, behaviours, and character qualities to progress in their future career. And with Entelechy, our system can qualify their impact through reflections and assessments by giving them the skills and tools to progress throughout their lifelong learning. Next slide, please. So everything that we've talked about, we believe, is the perfect storm and commercial opportunity for training providers. And this really only exists when we put future success and the learner at the heart of everything. The increased focus to progress learners and evidence behaviour standards really is key to apprenticeships and the needs of employers. The added opportunity to further embed this into apprenticeship delivery models will make it easier for you as providers to not only capture this as part of the 20% off the job, but also to evidence this with Ofsted and the SFA, giving you, the providers, the best possible chance of retaining and improving on an Ofsted grading. And that is fundamental to operate in the education and the school sector, as we all know. So we firmly believe in more engaged learners and happier employers means higher achievement rates. And everything we're talking about really is intrinsically linked and backed up by our research, our customer conversations, and our employer experiences. So we know that improvements in achievement rates equals greater revenue and client satisfaction, and our solution helps with this. So to summarise, Entelechy Academy supports you with Ofsted, capturing the 20%, evidencing progress, addressing all of those employer concerns, and puts learner success at the heart of everything you do. All of this is achieved while they're at work, in the flow of their work, by simply mapping our character qualities to behaviours. I'm now going to pass you on to Rachel, who's going to tell you how it all works. Over to you, Rachel.
Steve, and thanks, David. I'm here to give you an insight into the solution that we offer. So there are two parts really to our solution. The first part is what David introduced to you, which are our 54 character qualities that takes a human being and breaks them down into a curriculum, a chunks of learning that can be easily delivered. The second part is the method that David had hinted at and Steve has just alluded to, which takes responsibility for showing them how to be better in their behaviours, how to develop those qualities that will mean that they will be strong in the workplace. So if we have a look at the first diagram on the screen, it shows you that our learning journey is based, in essence, in all good learning. It's a 3-step process that's based on, first of all, working out where the learner is, then offering some intervention, and then seeing if that intervention has had impact. And any strong learning model needs that 3-step journey. So our step 1, our diagnostic, is essentially similar to a skills scan or an initial assessment that you would do on their technical skills. But here we ask the learner to self-reflect and then seek peer assessment of their behaviours, of their character. What are my strengths? What are my growth opportunities? And from there, the learner has the opportunity to then shape the learning that is personal to them. So recently we went to a conference with Ofsted, of which I've had 6 Ofsteds in my life, and I'm there with you. And in that conference, they said that the initial assessment was not only crucial, but that initial assessment had to feed into the learning that was then undertaken by the learner and essentially personalised. So what our diagnostic does is it empowers that learner to take on that responsibility of personalising their own learning of behaviours. Something that you can also guide them with the mapping that we offer, but ultimately they are in control. It is heavily learner-led. Our learning journey is broken down into some very common sense practices, really based strongly in research, but realistically, when you boil it down, this is how people learn. So the steps start with exploring. So if you imagine you have a problem at work, or you have an issue in life, or you just want to be better at something, our starting point is often to find out what other people have done before, and that's where we start. But we take on the responsibility of helping the learner know how to do that. How do you explore? How do you find all these ideas that are out there that could help you solve your issues and become better? We then encourage them to action those. So we ask them to take those hints, tips, ideas, pieces of advice, and then apply them, because until you apply them, they're just knowledge. They're just things that make you good at pub quizzes, realistically. Actioning them helps you to work out whether they work for you or not, if you need to course correct or not. And if it doesn't work, to celebrate the fact that it doesn't work, because now you've learned something even more powerful as you problem solve to work out what will work for you. And that comes from reflection. And we believe all people entering the workplace, the very characteristic of what makes us work ready and work effective is our ability to become reflective practitioners in our area. So we take on that responsibility to help the learner reflect. And ultimately, all of this has to be habitual. So first of all, what has to be a habit is that moment of learning. So when I learn to do something, I learn that I have to keep applying that until it moves from my conscious thought, where I'm consciously doing it, until it becomes unconscious. And as soon as I do that, as soon as I've built that habit, I've thoroughly learned something and it's embedded in my everyday work. The second reason we talk about habitual learning or repeating the process is that learning is an everyday experience. It is a daily habit, and my potential today is very different to my potential tomorrow and what my potential might be in 10 years' time. So what we do is we commit to helping our learners develop a mindset through our app, through the package that we offer you. We help the learner to take control of their learning and to take agency over that, so that every day when they move out into the destination, as well as while they're on the course with you, they take that responsibility for their own learning. And the final step in our journey is an assessment. And we offer this assessment on a very practical level, because you need evidence for your portfolios, your e-portfolios, in order to meet the gateway, in order to do the EPA. That assessment also helps the learner to condense their learning, so that when they get to that EPA, they can have very positive professional conversations, because suddenly they have a vocabulary for talking about their behaviours in the workplace and the work that they're doing to evolve their personal development, so they become better in those behaviours in the workplace. So that there is a very practical reason for this assessment to be in place. We're all in a model of evidence building, but it's more than that. And this is why I like what Ofsted have done, because Ofsted have moved beyond just outcome to impact. And what that means is that we get rewarded for adding value to our learners, which always felt a little bit overlooked before, because if our data dashboard was brilliant, then they often didn't come looking to see why. They just thought, well, they're outstanding because of their data dashboard. What the new Ofsted framework does is give us an opportunity to show off those things where we add that value. And our assessment is part of that, because what our assessment does is it creates a virtuous cycle of feedback that allows you to be that mentor and coach that continues the journey for the learner, so the learner can take up the baton and run with it in order to be the best person that they can be now and in the future. Next slide, please, Amy. So that assessment focuses on 5 areas, and these 5 areas reflect our approach to learning, but also reflect this idea of impact. So we are committed to the idea of helping the learner become a lifelong learner. And in order to do that, you have to first of all know why you're learning it and how it will help you. So we value context. It also is, our learning journey asks learners to respond to the ideas of others and see how it works for them. So we reward that in our assessment. Equally, unless you act on the ideas, we don't believe you're actually learning. So we reward people for actioning what they've found out and seeing how it works for them. The final 2 are very important to us, because these are the real standards for learning. The first one, reflecting forward, is do you have any takeaways that you're going to carry on using into the future because of this learning that you have done? In other words, have you learned something that is going to make a significant difference to you, and you're going to carry on doing that? The second one is impact. Has somebody seen you being more of this character quality? So if I took on the challenge of becoming kinder, more kind, and suddenly someone says, oh, thank you so much, that was really kind of you, or my boss sends me an email saying thanks for the kindness you showed to your colleague recently. All of this is validation for the work that I'm doing to become more, and I can use that in my assessment in order to evidence that. Now, this isn't evidence for evidence sake. The reason why we ask that to be there is so the learner gets that validation and looks for that validation, and therefore wants to continue on with the learning journey because they're confident and they're motivated. Next slide, please. So what is our solution then? So we talked to you about the innovation and the disruption, so the character qualities and the learning method. But how does this practically get delivered to you as a training provider? Well, first of all, you get a learner guide, an online learner guide. That learner guide guides the learner independently through the steps of our journey and gives them the tools they need in order to undertake that journey. To support you in the delivery of this, we also offer you a mentor guide that gets under the surface of why the learner is being asked to do things, so you can guide them and add depth and add that value added. To support you in that, we also offer a train the trainer package that helps you understand how to give the learner that independence. Most learners come to us highly schooled and not prepared to be lifelong learners. And so what we do in that train the trainer is help you understand how to de-school them and empower them with that agency to take control of the learning. We also offer an app that shows our 54 character qualities and 54 coaching questions that are all also available in decks of cards. And what those do are offer outstanding resources for deep reflection and therefore real change, where the learner starts to think about the power they have to become the person that they know they can be. Next slide, please, Amy. We've had some great success with some early adopters. Here we have two of our customers who I've been working with closely, Amanda and Rachel, who are absolutely outstanding professionals who have seen the need to offer that value added, but also the need to offer that systematic and structured approach to learning that Ofsted are now demanding. The reason why it's been so brilliant to work with Rachel and Amanda is because they have this eye on the future for their learners and this eye on making them work ready. Conversation I had with Amanda recently was that she was really excited because they were able to talk better now when doing interview practice about how their behaviours make them suited for the workplace, which she'd always had a struggle with before. So that was very positive feedback. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Rachel, Steve, and David. Thank you all very much. So just in summary then, what we've talked through today is about how we deliver behaviour standards in the flow of work, and how we address Ofsted's need to demonstrate intent, implementation, and impact, and also how we satisfy the requirements of a good and/or outstanding Ofsted judgment, how we develop work-ready independent learners, and how we improve early engagement, leading to improved achievement rates. So that's in summary. And we would like to now head over to Q&A. So there is a Q&A button at the bottom of your screens, a little black banner across the bottom. So if you do have any questions for us, please do type them in and we will get answering. Okay, first question. How much time would you say tutors need to spend with apprentices? Rachel, would you like to take that one?
Certainly. The idea is that this is a learner-led experience. So the learner should be able to log onto the learner guide and work their way through the process and take control of their own learning. The likelihood is that early intervention with a tutor, a burst of introduction, will enhance their ability to take control of that. So Amanda and Rachel and other customers I'm talking to are essentially doing a very brief induction into the system and then checking in during progress checks along the way. But essentially, the design of the program is to be learner-led.
Brilliant. Thank you, Rachel. We have another question here. What happens with apprentices partway through soft skills provision with our current system? Rachel.
So you have two options. Option one is that this can continue from where you've left off, and whatever is left to do can be mapped and can be covered using our system. So because it's so flexible and because the character qualities map so well to the behaviours, you can actually start wherever you are in your journey with the learner. The other option is to use this with your rolling program of new intake and start them off with this. And to be fair, both work incredibly well. It's especially powerful in the first 3 months for helping the apprentice develop the behaviours that they require and the work effectiveness needed for employment. But both approaches work well.
Thank you. Steve, this one's for you. Can we trial with a small cohort before we look to buy?
Of course, of course. Absolutely. No, we have some providers that are currently working with us on a trial at the moment, but we also have launched a research project with AELP, and we're actively looking for training providers, colleges who want to be part of that research project. So if you're interested, then we can pick this up after the call. And part of that research project, we're looking to really start by the beginning of April. So we're looking for providers to be on board between now and the end of March. And part of that research will allow you to have all of the research around your existing learners, the learners that you put onto the Entelechy system, as well as access to all of the research from all of the learners across all of the providers as well, obviously anonymously. So there are two routes. You can go down the research route with us, or if you're interested in trialing with us, then I'm happy to talk to you offline.
Brilliant, thank you. And I'll be sharing Steve's details in just a moment. We have another question here from Mark. Does your system integrate with any ePortfolios LMS systems? Rachel.
Question, and one that we get often. First of all, the evidence that is created during our learning process is all PDF based. So those PDFs can upload into any LMS ePortfolio system and therefore help you to gather the evidence for the portfolios. The program itself is not a learning system as such. It's a way of working. It's an app on a phone. So essentially what that does, stands alone to guide the learner day by day through our learning journey. So it's best, in my mind, it's the best of both worlds. First of all the evidence that's created will naturally integrate with all LMSs, all ePortfolio systems, but the learner carries it with them on their phone in order to interact with it on a day-to-day basis as a mobile app.
Brilliant, thank you very much. And we have another question here. How can we know the reaction Ofsted will have to this? I know, Rachel, you've been through many Ofsted inspections yourself. Perhaps you'd like to answer this one.
Well, first of all, David has been in contact with Paul Joyce and had dinner with him and talked to him about our project, and is very excited by it.
Yeah.
The second thing to explore is the idea of of the change in the Ofsted focus. So the change from outcome to impact is significant. So if you imagine what they're looking for now is not just that we deliver results, but that we have an intention to deliver results. And that we have the skill and the technique to implement it, as well as getting an impact. And that impact is on the individual learner and their ability to go forward and be successful. So what we've done is we've given you a program, a structured and systematic curriculum that shows that intent. We will help you with the implementation with Train the Trainer and our mentor guide. And we strongly believe and have evidence from those that have been through our pilots so far that the impact comes for the learner in terms of their confidence and their ability to take their working life forward. So in the words of Ofsted, they are prepared for the future of work, which is literally scattered all the way through the Ofsted document. So that's what makes us so confident that this is well received by Ofsted.
Thank you, Rachel. We have another question. Do you have a research team or collaboration with universities? David, if you'd like to come back on camera and answer that one, that would be great.
Thank you. We are going to run a pilot for a year from nearly a year, from September to June next year, with one university and all 25,000 learners at that university. But that's once we have finalized the development of our full SaaS product, which will be at the end of August this year. But yes, we have one whole university pilot project lined up for September.
Brilliant, thank you. Another question, can it be white labeled? David, would you like to take that one?
It's not our plan to offer a white label version, no.
Okay, thank you. And how much does it cost? Steve?
Okay, thank you, Amy. So the current cost is £100 per person per year. Now, the reason why we've put it as a sort of a license product is because we know that people learn in, well, different ways and at a different pace. So it's really important that we give enough time to learners to self-develop, as well as keeping them engaged, particularly in the first 3 to 6 months. But not only that, learners also get access to all 54 character qualities for a 12-month period, so that they can continue to develop their character qualities outside of work to better themselves. And we think this is real value add for both learners and employers over and above the behaviour standards. So it's £100 per person per year.
Thank you very much. Someone else has asked, I have approximately 500 apprentices. How much will it cost to implement your Entelechy system? So I believe we've answered that one. And there's one more here. You mentioned software to support the Entelechy approach. Can you expand on what functionality the software provides? Rachel, would you like to address that one?
Certainly. There is the version that we have now, which is a package, which includes the learner guide, the mentor guide, and lots of tracking documents. That at the moment is very similar to an ebook. So what it does is it offers a very simple system within which the learner can dip in and learn our method, because I'm the ed of the ed tech. So our innovation is the 54 character qualities and the mode of getting them to think about their learning. As David alluded to, there will be a full SaaS platform, a full mobile app that literally its functions will cover all aspects of this, from micro learning experiences through to a place to record ideas, through to a place to share those ideas with others, and many, many more features. And those that are coming onto the pilot research and to as part of our pilot centres, joining us in that journey and helping us towards that significant innovation, and in so doing, getting that much more support from us in the process.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Someone else says, I'm curious about those cards. Well, those are something that I developed. I have a background in coaching, and the cards take in conjunction with the character qualities, the 54 character qualities. There's 54 cards that take the learner on a journey through a coaching journey, essentially. So it's almost like having your own coach and being able to work through the cards yourself and or with others. So yeah.
There's an excellent
And
games page.
David, sorry, I think David wanted to say something. You're on mute.
Sorry, I was just going to say I've got a pack of cards in my hand, and I've got them on my desk all the time. If you hand this pack of cards to an employer and ask them to go through and remove any one of the 54 character qualities that they're not interested in their employees being better at or more of, they end up saying, we'd like our employees to be better at all of these things. Equally, if you hand the pack of cards to an apprentice and ask them which one of these cards do you think could help you in any aspect of your life or work, they go through and say, well, all of them could. Why weren't we taught this at school? And interestingly, even though we have an app that does exactly the same thing as the qualities cards and the reflective questions cards, lots of people like having the physical cards as well.
Yeah, indeed they do. We've got a question here, can I buy them somewhere? So if you are interested in seeing them, please do contact Steve and I will put his details up and we can get some sent to you. And or you can download the Entelechy app yourselves and they're all there. So there aren't any more questions at the moment. If there are any more that come through, I will answer them, or we will answer them momentarily. In the meantime, these are Steve's details, steve.barker@entelechy.academy. So please jot those down or screenshot them. You can follow us at Entelechy Academy on LinkedIn, which is where we're most proactive. There's also Twitter and Instagram there as well. So I think that's it. No more questions. Thank you all very much for attending today. It's been a great pleasure to have you all here and to share what we're up to. So yes, any further questions, please get in touch with Steve and we will hopefully speak to you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.